Anvil, Hard and Heavy. Their first album from this great Canadian metal band came out in 1981, although the band got together when they first met back in 1973 when guitarist and singer Steve Kudrow, aka Lips, got together with Rob Reiner, a drummer from the Toronto area as well. And those guys began what is known as the band Anvil eventually. First album, like I said, 1981. Their second album, however, Metal on Metal, is probably my favorite metal album and definitely my favorite Anvil. Now, I want to say before I get into the story, if Lips is seeing this, or Rob, or anybody from the band, I mean no disrespect whatsoever. I'm a huge Anvil fan. I've seen Anvil a couple of times, as recent as 2022 up in Portland, Oregon, which was one of the best metal experiences of my life. That was awesome at Dante's, man. One killer show. So I'll get on with my story for today. Anvil, the band. We're going to go back to the year 2009. Remember MySpace? Well, I was on MySpace, and yeah, man, I ended up making friends with Lips from Anvil, and we were writing back and forth for quite a while, and I was doing a radio show, which I'm still doing. I host and produce the Church of Rock radio show Sunday nights, every Sunday from, well, 7 until 9 these days, or is it 5 to 7? No, it's 6 to 8, yeah. It's been every time you can think of. I'm kidding with you. But the Church of Rock radio show decided we wanted to interview Lips from Anvil. And coincidentally, of course, the Anvil book had come out in 2009. And before that, what busted the whole scene wide open for Anvil and got the publicity shining straight on them was a movie called The Anvil Story. And man, it was awesome. Anyone that's into rock and roll, whether you like metal or not, whether you like Anvil or not, you can't help but fall in love with these guys when you see what they went through, all the triumphs, all the tragedies. They were touring with bands like the Scorpions and Whitesnake, big bands in the 80s. And then all of a sudden they flash forward in this movie and they're in bars playing to like 10, 15 people in like weird places. And, you know, it's just a bunch of really drunk people and it's depressing, but the band soldiers on, and that's the whole point of Anvil, right? Lots of bands have said, hey man, that band influenced us. Bands that are metal, of course, like Megadeth and Anthrax and Metallica and Slayer, big names. So what happened? Well, sometimes people get lucky, sometimes they get unlucky, sometimes they have a little bit of both, and according to the story I know about Anvil, it's been both. So I'm talking to Lips, Steve Kudrow, on MySpace. He connects me with his people, and his people get a hold of my people. And next thing you know, he's on my interview. He's on the show. He's on the radio, and we're talking. Well, it went well, and that interview is on my other channel, by the way, The Church of Rock, one word. So right now would be a good time to subscribe to this channel, please, and give it a like. This video, that is, and leave a comment down below. 2009, I'm interviewing Lips. The next thing you know, they're playing in Chicago. And I'm like, I've got to go. And it was January the 10th, 2010. Yep. And his people put me on the guest list for the House of Blues in Chicago for January 10th, 2010. And I could have one other person go with me. So I got a hold of my friend James Laritzen, who's a fellow rocker that I've known for a long time. And I know he's watching this. So dudes and dudettes, Anvil, Chicago, House of Blues, guest list, backstage passes, the works, right? We get there, we have a great ride down, we're super psyched up, we are just dying to see Anvil. We've been fans since, well, the 80s. Yep, since the Metal on Metal album came out, that's when I first heard of Anvil. So since about 83, 84-ish. What happens was we get to the House of Blues. Of course, there's a great crowd. I would say 50% of the crowd was people that were new from the Anvil movie, and the other 50% were people like me and James who were there from like the original wave. Here to see our heroes rock in concert, right? And I was excited because they used to be a 4-piece band and now they were a 3-piece. Well, I couldn't wait to meet Lips to ask him about, you know, that whole downsizing and the sound and all that. But first, we talk about the show. The show was good, man. It was really good. The only complaint was that it wasn't freaking loud enough, man. Just for me, it wasn't loud enough. It needs to be very loud. Rock and roll, metal, or punk rock. It's got to be loud for me to really effectively dig it. But it was good. They were super good. They did stuff from a lot of their albums. They had a bass player at the time named Glenn Five. They have a new guy, not a new guy, but they have a different bass player now. But Glenn Five was actually the bass player, so it was Lips, Rob Reiner, and Glenn Five. It was the Anvil Experience Tour. And basically, we were so excited that we almost pissed ourselves. Kidding. The set list they did that night, and this is the exact set list that I obtained through my rock and roll sources. They came out and did March of the Crabs, which is a killer instrumental from Metal on Metal. They did 666 from Metal on Metal. They did School Love, Winged Assassins, This Is 13, which, by the way, when they were touring, that was the album they were sort of promoting. They had re-released This Is 13, but it had come out, I believe, earlier. I'm not quite sure of the lineage, but This Is 13 was their 13th Anvil album. After that, they did the song Mothra from Metal on Metal, which was freaking killer. Mothra is one of the best tunes. If you remember the old dinosaur movies or the King Kong kind of movies, Mothra, remember Mothra, the 1950s black and white creature? It was about Mothra, so that's one of the best Anvil songs, I swear to you. After that, they did Thumb Hang, White Rhino, Mad Dog, Forged in Fire. Yeah, what a great one, man. Metal on Metal, of course, they had to do that. And the guys also did Jackhammer from the Metal on Metal album. So it's pretty obvious from this set list that most people are stuck in the past, and they probably catered to their fans. So they did a lot of stuff from This Is 13. They did a lot of stuff from Metal on Metal, and also the Hard and Heavy album. Man, my memory's not what it used to be. But it was a great show, very cool. I gotta say, man, during the show, Robbo, the drummer, he did a killer and pretty long, surprisingly long drum solo that showed not only his agility and strength, but his sheer talent on the drums. Yep, I'm kissing your ass, Robbo. And Lips, man, fantastic show that night. At the end of the show, at the climax of the show, pardon the bad pun, he brings out a dildo and he goes down the guitar strings and he makes these awesome sounds as he's stroking the guitar strings with a dildo. This is no joke. This is an old act that he's been doing for a long time, and he's just awesome. I remember seeing videos of Anvil back in the 80s and 90s, and he was doing it, and he's still doing it. And you don't know what's really happening until it's going on, and then you're going, is that a dildo? But yeah, it's just genius because it projects and makes this really groovy sound because of the electrical, the batteries on the guitar strings. It's just badass, man. Pure Anvil, pure Lips. I gotta say too, if you didn't know, the band played in 2022 at Dante's in Portland, and they started out the show with Lips standing on the floor. So we were like looking around going, where's Lips? There's Robbo and there's the bass player. And he was right there in front of us, man. Boom. We were not expecting it. It was just too good. And man, those guys, it was just like it was 1985. I swear to you. It was the best metal show I'd seen since the 80s. Absolutely hands down. To this day, Anvil is way better than they even were then. So wine isn't the only thing that can age finely, and they say musicians drink from the fountain of youth. Well, Anvil probably owns that damn fountain somewhere up in Toronto or somewhere in Canada. For God's sake, I've got to get on with my story. One more piece of trivia before I get to the real climax of this story. The band performed on the Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien in 2009. It was the first time they'd ever appeared on network TV since they had started in the 70s. Yeah, man. So they played Metal on Metal. You can probably find it, where. One last thing. At the very end of the show, since we did have the backstage passes and the completely beloved, all access and blah, 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 and we were on the guest list, we had to go meet the guys. I gotta say, there's no cooler band than Anvil. They did a meet and greet. They met all their fans. They signed each and every autograph until the last fan is there. When they came backstage, that's when me and James decided to say hi to the guys. So we did. We got photos with me and with Robbo and, James and Robbo and James and Lips and vice versa. We got all those pictures. Then This is when I pissed off Lips from Anvil. Lips, I'm sorry, man. I hope I don't regenerate any bad feelings or hostile reaction from you over this shit. Please don't get mad. Here's what happened. I walked up to Lips. I said, look, good to meet you. Derek Moody from the Church of Rock radio show. And I want you to know that was killer. But I got to ask you a question. And he goes, yeah, shoot, man. It was really cool. A little bit laid back and a little bit not as approachable as Robbo kind of was. But he was cool, totally. And I said, you know, you guys have always had two guitars in your sound, right? Two guitars in Anvil. And on this tour or right recently or whenever, there's only you now. So there's one guitar, one bass, one drums. How does that sound to you in your own head audibly? How does that sound, that change? Is it big? Is it small? Is it not a big deal? Is it a huge deal? What do you think? Lips went off. He went off the deep end. If not 10 minutes, 15 minutes, solid of him saying, oh man, you're full of, it's just, that's psychological, man. That's purely psychological. There's no difference. Nothing at all, period. There's not, you know, it's all in your head. And I'm like, dude, okay. And I thought it would just stop right there, but it went on and on and on. Come on, Lips, you know yourself. If you're watching this, you did. And on and on. And then finally, while Lips was, you know, kind of griping me out, bitching at me or taking a stance on what he believed, you know, passionately in, to be fair, my buddy James says out loud, boy, you pissed him off. And Lips doesn't even hear him. He's just going on and on. Sorry, man, but it was crazy, and I was humiliated. I felt like an idiot, and so Marky Ramone is not the only musician I've pissed off, and I got to tell you, I've got a list of about 8 others I'm going to do videos on. Yep, I've pissed off, fill in the blank. But anyway, finally, after he calmed down, I apologized over and over. He didn't really want to hear it. He wasn't really having it. It's almost like that was a bone of contention for him, and I happened to come along at the right time and just happened to be the dumbass that had to say, hey, does the sound any different now with one guitar? He was pissed, man. So I think he was on the edge on that one already, and I just happened to be the dummy that came up to him and asked that, I guess, apparently stupid question. Hey, man, please, once again, subscribe to this channel. I got another one coming at you tomorrow and one at you the next day after that because I've been slacking, man. Yeah, I've been going through some stuff, insomnia and other crap, and what are you going to do, man? I'm only human, and it is only rock and roll. Long live Anvil. Love you guys. Metal on metal. Punk rock.